I think a lot of folks here felt the way I felt when we woke up early morning Sunday to hear about 20, and we were stunned, only to hear a few hours thereafter that it more than doubled, 49. And the reports that we read when the first responders entered the dance hall in the most surreal fashion, in the most heartbroken fashion, to hear all the cell phones, with the parents, loved ones, and partners and husbands all calling in this desperation to make some sort of contact with their loved ones.
This time, the victims weren't children or co-workers or students or a professor on a campus. They were members of my community. 49 lives lost, 49 families forever changed, 49 young people who were in otherwise a safe place were ruthlessly gunned down by simply living their truth. And 53 other members are seriously injured, some fighting for their lives as we speak. This weekend has been one of reflection, sadly concluding in the realization that gay people, we are not safe, not even in our own country. It was Latino night at Pulse, a minority within a minority, where we still struggle to find our own identity within mainstream gay culture. LGBT Latinos not only continue to fight racism and homophobia within our own culture, but we also struggle for our rightful place in this larger movement of equality.
Unfortunately, our community is no stranger to violence. It's dangerous for LGBT people to walk down the street. Violence happens. We were the victims of violence when our own federal government turned its back on us at the early days of the HIV/AIDS epidemic, while thousands and thousands of young gay men died and no attention was given to them. The metropolitan community churches of our neighborhoods have been burned to the ground in decades past. So this violence is not new. I just want to add to Senator Lara's comments by suggesting that this or any other kind of violence doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in a context, and the context is both social and political. Within this context, there are dozens of states and the federal government which to this day deny me a seat in a restaurant or a hotel room or even an apartment because there are no prohibitions in law from discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity. This is the political and social context. I'm not saying that gives license to this behavior, but in no way discourages it. We can do better. We can teach our children better.
Yesterday was Pride Parade in West Hollywood. I participated in the event. It was a joyful affair, but obviously one quite a bit more subdued than usual. But I wanted to take just a second to thank a couple extraordinary people who averted what could have been a tremendous tragedy at Pride yesterday in West Hollywood. Just a neighbor living in Santa Monica saw a suspicious character prowling around at 5 in the morning, and when the police found him, he said he was going to Pride, and it turned out his car was filled with 3 assault rifles, a bucket full of chemicals that could be used for explosives, a ton of magazine clips, and I just can't imagine what would have happened if that person hadn't called the police and caught this guy. We could have had another tragedy on our hands right here in our own backyard here in California.
Yesterday was a very heartbreaking day for all of us, but I think that it's important for all of us to remember also the courageous stories of countless victims who put their lives on the line to save the lives of others. The courage of individuals like 26-year-old Josh McGill, who instead of running to safety within the police perimeter, stopped to help a total stranger who was stumbling toward him covered in blood. Josh McGill grabbed the wounded man and pulled him to safety behind a car until he could tie the man's arms off to stop the bleeding from the gunshot wounds, and until he could summon the strength to usher them both to safety, only to find that this young man had a third gunshot wound to the back. 26-year-old Josh McGill stayed with this stranger, applying pressure to his wound and holding him in his arms in the back of a police car because there weren't enough emergency personnel who could take over and respond. The young man, Rodney, survived because of Josh McGill's strength. This is just one of many stories of courage of individuals who were targeted just because of who they love. Lives were forever changed yesterday. For most, they will never be the same. But as we remember the violence, the tragedy, and the scars that this will leave, let us also remember the courage and the strength and the love of our community today because of who we are and who we choose to love.